the same time. Okay, so I'll open the space. You can keep it concise and short, so that we could go straight into the heart of things. For now, let's just harvest. Who would like to start? Hey, Tom. We're doing a check-in. So for everyone who just came in, like, just how do you feel right now? What do you, just from a personal space, just to sound yourself in? You can start.
Oh, everyone. Yeah, pretty good actually. In quite a busy place, so I've been working a lot, and I feel like I've turned a little bit of a corner in some senses, where I'm landing back here in the UK. It's been about a year, and finally feel like I've actually figured it out, at least in part, of how to like be here, or like be here in a good way, I suppose. So yeah, right now I'm feeling fairly optimistic and upbeat, even though I've just come off a day's worth of demolishing bathrooms.
Nice. Amazing. Thank you, Tom. Who would like to be next?
Hi, everyone. Thought we'd get the British people out the way first. So nice to see you all. I'm really buoyant and happy and so excited about this process. Tom and I have been doing some group space work together, which I'm just loving. So I'm putting into practice everything we did in Turkey. And yeah, I've been getting really good results. I'm going to be filming my mum this weekend with Guillem. He's coming over for the weekend, so we're doing my mum with Alzheimer's. So I'm very excited to do that. And hopefully I'm going to introduce Guillem to Josh's mum. She may be coming to the class on Sunday, so we can see if there are any more updates with Josh and the playlist and all that. So I will keep you guys posted, and I'm really happy to be here with you all.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible. Thank you. Okay, who's next?
Hi, I guess I go. I'm Gra. Yeah, my name is changed there. I am now in Luxembourg. I've just come from Belgium from some immersions we were having there, and I am a little bit getting ready for my first big immersion in Portugal, which is happening this Thursday. So I will be flying tomorrow, and I'm in the middle of multitasking while in the call with hostels and the slides preparation and getting all ready. And I guess this is the quickest I can go.
Really cool. Thank you.
Hello,
Hi, everyone.
Oh, sorry.
Ilaria, go.
Sorry. At the same time. Everyone, I'm feeling very good. I just like observing this day that I feel like very strange situation that is coming up. Like I don't know if it's like Tulum or in general, but I felt something that is like just stuck in these days, like the energy, everything like this stopping. So yeah, I'm just observing what is going on in these days here. And then yeah, it's interesting because I feel like it's like general. I don't know if it's in all over the world, but in this area, I really feel that. So I'm just like try to observe in and from the distance what is happening here. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Hi, bye. Hi to those that it's the first time that I'm seeing them. I'm joining from Mexico City. Mm, well, how I feel? Well, I feel that the simplest way to say it is I feel that I am accountable for life. I am in a moment where things are encountering me and I'm administrating with guidance and intuition what is presented. I feel in a very good health position. Yes, and I'm very much in touch. It's like I let go my guitar and my approach to music through the instrument, and I enjoying what is going on with my possibilities in music and my experience in music with the playlist, and also rechecking the material that you share. I'm very excited for what the things that I am practicing and putting and observing what is going on. It's a very interesting real-time feedback that I am getting from this moment. And I'm so excited for being here. Thank you so much.
Hi, here's Atilan. So I am preparing myself to go to Germany and also go to Sri Lanka. Just 1 year ago, my mother passed on, and there's a 1 year anniversary. There's like a ceremony in the Hinduism that people are doing, and I will be part of it as the son. And there's something happening for me going back to my for my birth country, but also where my family is from, where I grew up. And then would be the first time that I go back. Then my mother is not anymore there, and there's a lot happening in that sense of also, but in a way mirroring in many spaces about parenting, inner parenting, and self-parenting. At the same time, I find myself in the eye of the storm. This is really amazing. At the same time, there's a lot happening, and there is kind of a calmness in it. I'm preparing some documents in German for the people who have attended the last 2 weekend immersions, which brings up a lot of things in combination of also they really want to go and lay down and create sessions for themselves. So we are somehow creating playlists together in like 3-4 spaces. That there's something happening in Germany at the moment that feels like there's an opening for inner dance, which excites me a lot. And while being in the Studious Mundos study group and observing all those topics, I can resonate with many of those things. And somehow this whole thing that we are here makes so much sense. So thank you.
Hello. Hey. Oi. Yeah. Hi. Yeah, I feel when Arilan shares that he feels like in the eye of the storm, or I feel like the same for last 3 days. I feel super focused and centered. It's a nice feeling. The days before were more restless for me. But now I feel this super inner peace. I don't feel the need to speak or to talk or to see people actually. And I like that. And then what I want to share is that I have put the playlist, the Josh playlist for my son 2 times, and he liked it. What was interesting that the first moment I put it on, he immediately was asking for a certain cushion that he got when he was, I think, 3 years old. I thought that was, for me, that was a remarkable thing, actually. He never asked for it. Yeah, and then my daughter has also used the Josh playlist. I know that she is very curious for inner dance, but that she's as well also very afraid, because she thinks she's going to make a fool of herself, and she doesn't want to. Yeah, she's 18, so she's it's a big thing. But then she just texted me a few days ago, like, where is that music that you put for Brazil? Can you send it to me? And so I said, yeah, it's just there on the computer. You have access if you like. And so she together with her boyfriend, they slept on it, and they used it. And then I asked her the other morning, like, how was it? And she said, yeah, it was a strange, I slept in a very strange way. I cannot really speak about it. It was weird. But then, and also that she had to go to the bathroom sometimes. And so yeah, she was a bit in confusion, but I just left it there and I did not go in deeper with her. I'm just gonna leave it with them and see whether they ask for more or no. So, but yeah, I think it's, for me, it's really interesting to see how the inner dance, like I shared, it was, for me, it was very important that it was time that I started to share with my children what I'm actually doing all the time, and interested in. And so yeah, there's an opening, and it's interesting. And I think that there are like friends of mine who are also interested in yeah, opening inner dance for their children. So I hope that maybe there is a way, a path that is there. I feel like, so, well, I'm very happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Katia. I'm happy to be back in the inner dance family. For me, I feel like in the eye of the storm as well. I've been dealing with mental health from my mom and my daughter, and the Josh playlist and everything that has been shared in the group has been very eye-opening and helpful to my desire to understand, not just to give a session, but this facilitating and this creating the music goes beyond that, and it can actually help, in so many different ways, more deeper. There is a big desire for me to understand how the brain works and the electricity, specifically because the situation that I'm living in. I haven't played the playlist for my daughter because she's in this residence for teens, but I played it for my son yesterday because everything is going on in my family. He's having these fears and outbursts of anger and deep sorrow or sadness because what's going on with his sister, and he usually has a hard time sleeping. And yesterday I played on the background, like by suggested, and he really had an amazing sleep. He just fell asleep very relaxed. He didn't wake up through the night. But I think this is a great opportunity to see where this takes us deeper, and I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry. Federica speaking. I'm in Mexico. Actually, I just got back. I'm super grateful to be here. I just got back for traveling from the US. I'm in Mexico right now, and I'm just I'm dealing with many emotions and feelings these days. So I'm trying to digest everything. And yes, like Ilaria said, I found the energies here like a bit stuck. That for me is perfect because I need to step back and digest and observing. Thank you so much. I'm super grateful to be part of this group.
Hi, this is Isabel from Spain. And yeah, very grateful also to be here. I have listened to the playlists with, I'm waking up in the middle of the night and putting the headphones. So listening to them in a like already dreamlike state because of the hour. And it has been very interesting, the kind of the effects. With one of them, I don't know if because it is that way or because it was an experience, but I kind of felt some sounds in one place and another sounds in another place, and then some sounds in the room. It was with headphones, but in the room, like that they were more far away. They were not. They were more far away, but in the room, like if you hear them. I don't know how to say that, but like in different places of space. And that was, yeah, that was quite amazing. And yeah, for the rest, yeah, I'm going through the usual healing process, which is not yet finished, but like diving into different themes than usual. I mean, it's like the old topics, but plus new ones. And some of them are kind of like childish, superficial, ridiculous thoughts or beliefs or wants that were in my subconscious mind, and they are like popping out. And it's kind of fun because besides like the tough, dark things, and now I'm seeing obstacles which are like of a teenager, kind of like very immature ones, sort of to say. And I'm having fun of it, like seeing how foolish things can be, and what big, and that even if they are foolish, they can really become a big obstacle. I mean, as foolish as they are, or superficial, they are obstacles anyway, or things to clear up. So kind of having fun with what I'm finding out in my subconscious mind, and how childish I am in some aspects. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I will share. I was really not feeling like talking because I had a long, busy day, and in general, these days have been a lot of input, and I don't know. I just need to press the rest and digest button, but I haven't been able to yet. Choosing not to, I guess. Yeah, and the sharing of Isabel really cheered me up. So I suddenly have energy actually to speak, because it was, I don't know, very pleasant wave of giggle within. So yeah, I just got back from Portugal, which was very interesting time of depth and not really like externalizing a lot of things and not really like a holiday thing, but more like a womb experience. And we met up with Gra when she was in Porto and had a session, held the space together. It was so nice. The space was, to begin with, the space was incredible at the top of a clock tower of a train station. So it's like, and you could even, one of the windows was the glass of the old clock. So just like the tower of time above the station of traveling. It was just like time traveling place. And it was incredibly beautiful because it had a high ceiling and wooden, I don't know, this like old like Japanese style, you know, roofing. So very, very special. And people, and Gra herself commented about the music that was coming up, like it was coming intense and with high tempo and like a strong beat. Somehow maybe the space itself was dictating time-like or time-like tempo, but then people were experiencing a lot of space, like, you know, how one polarity holds space for the other. So it was very nice. And it was our first meeting with Gra. We didn't know each other and we just jumped right into the session. Very spontaneous and very beautiful. So grateful for Pi, for connecting us. And yeah, had a session also Sunday here back in Lithuania already. And I can also see those needs of intensity in some people, not many actually, but some, yes. And the way I kind of communicate or respond to that is that, well, intensity comes from a personal story. So if you're within like these subtle vibrations and feelings, it means that you're beyond intensity. So I kind of congratulate them with that. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you for you all being here and for all the conversations and dialogues that have been held.
Hello, everyone. I am Itka. Nice to see you all again. Yeah, I'm happy that I was a little overwhelmed also these days with all the messages and all the stuff and all the groups. But I'm very happy that the topics there came up because yes, it also was in my head how to present the inner dance in the group, like you know, I am living in the small village, and on the corner there is like centrum with the old peoples, you know, and so I am thinking just bring the inner dance to them, you know, just like make the sessions. Or when I after the Turkey, I did the inner dance session with the one guy. He is doing musicotherapy, and he's working in the hospital here in Mallorca. So I was talking to him, and we did a session, and it was just like amazing, you know. And then, but I feel I'm not ready to, you know, to go to places like this and explain what is really inner dance, you know. So I was really happy that you talk about it a little in the group. And yeah, I am still on my own process, like yeah, never ending story. So thank you to be here.
Okay, so for those who just came in, which is Noha and Annika, we're just doing some quick check-ins in case like people want to speak what they're feeling or bringing into the space today. So anyone else who hasn't shared and would like to, yeah, we'll just close the circle.
Hi, I'm Joy. Nice to see you all. So for me, I'm in a transitioning moment in life somewhat. Not like we're not always transitioning, but this one seems more transitional than others. And so I'm experiencing like a lot of changes in my sleeping patterns, for example. Like before, I was very sure that I needed my 8 sacred hours of sleep, and kind of like gave a lot of importance to rest in that sense. And lately I've been experiencing that changing a lot, like not needing so much sleep, and also I have been traveling, like moving a lot from one place to another. So I am kind of readjusting to my belief system that's telling me that I should be very exhausted when I'm really not. And yeah, really happy to have been sharing sessions lately, sharing also with Katia in Los Angeles, and here in Valle de Bravo, where I live in Mexico City in the woods. And yeah, I've been following up the conversations on the chats. For me, it's kind of like a hot topic right now about the communication and the words that we're using, and whether, say, Kundalini, no Kundalini, is it useful? Is it, something we should avoid? Also this conversation that we had about blocks, should we talk about blocks, not blocks? So these conversations about the choice of words and how to, and the communication lines for me are relevant right now. Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone
Hi,
else?
I'm Natalie.
Hi, Natalie.
Hi. I did the inner dance training the last year, and I have been experiencing a lot. And this Sunday, I had a new experience only in Zoom, and because I have had before in Zoom, but this Sunday was only Zoom, because I was only connected with the screen, and this and I feel a lot of movement, and very connected with the energy, and it was so nice. Only 2 persons have some problem with the audio. I asked in the group. I think the next times I want to work when it's online, only online, not with people in the room, because I think I am more concentrated in the screen and with the people, and it's very nice. Thank you. I am in Canary Island. Thank you to be here again.
Okay. Noha, Anuka, or Joanna, do you want to share? And then, yeah. Giving space.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can say hi quickly from our evening routines, trying to find my daughters to their beds, and maybe can focus on listening. And yeah, well, the main thing that is ongoing in here is the transition in my close circle from this realm to another. So that's what's been here as a process. And I don't really want to share anything more about that, but yeah, that's what's going on. And today I work as a goldsmith for a part of the week. We had a security training, and you could imagine that a security company would train you as some sort of a system, and how would you act in certain situations, and like well, just like really practical terms of what to do in what sort of threats there could be in that space. But the trainer was really interesting and I was really interested to listen to his presentation, because it was approaching the whole thing from recognizing like the body and the mind reactions to a possible situation. So he was actually explaining like the nervous system and the mirror neurons and things like that we've been talking around inner dance. So it was really quite something to listen to that aspect and approach to something that's assumingly something really practical. But yes, thank you. That's my sharing.
Okay, so Annika said she was in a rush. Noha, did you want to chime in?
I think Noha also said earlier that she's in a house where there's others.
Okay. All right. Okay, so hi everyone. Yeah, it's always a big time. It's always the eye of the storm. This has actually been the first calmish week since we got back. So the connection is crystal clear. Fanny actually just landed in Manila maybe a couple of hours ago. So I'm going to be picking her up from the airport tomorrow. So she'll be joining us in the eye of the storm here. So I felt quite clear upon waking up at 1 o'clock in the morning prior to this 2 a.m. call, where it really feels like there's this big interwoven tapestry. Everything seems really connected, and that's something I would expect within Studios Mundos space. So this channel and this community really serves me a lot. There really are just so many people already in the intensive groups, and yet we're getting more and more inquiries. Italy, by the way, isn't joining us. She's deciding to not be in a social setting for maybe a week more, because being around people triggers normalcy, and she wants to stay within what is happening in her mind, body, and spirit, which some of you might have experienced, and it can be quite deep. And there's so much to learn in that. That's her inner dance at the moment. So I find myself opening and closing the space here. So thank you a lot. I think energy and spirit can speak to itself through us. It's always like that. You could talk to a baby or a cow or your best friend. When you choose to enter a certain holographic field, always it averages out. There's this field of resonance. And it's really a matter of creating that space or container, and the energy would speak to itself from the middle. So I find myself really just opening my ears to listen to, okay, what is there? I'm interested in all of you and all of what you're bringing in, but I'm interested in what is in you that is also not you, it's beyond you. So I took some notes. So there's a lot happening, and we've been naming these slowly. We know that there is a part that's amazing, and whenever I think of amazing, there's like a maze in amazing, which leads to things that are also not so amazing, but are challenges and tensions and like roadblocks is a good term. Roadblocks is not a negative. It's a chance to find a better way. Roadblocks is the aporia. We've spoken about that quite often. The aporetics is the study of how we can achieve more efficient or higher or more structural possibilities. Whenever you come into an aporia, that is actually an opportunity to think in a different way. A roadblock is that. And usually when the way is easy, that's actually when thinking stops. So we also have to celebrate the blockages in that way. So not really canceling it out, but the blockages are possible openings in a sense. So I'm in this receiving of a lot. It's not a lot, but it's several. There are inputs coming in from many sectors of the world that's coming from almost this concern or worry that there is an oversaturation of energy stuff in the world right now. So that's contextual. It depends on where you are at. There are places in the world that's undergoing like an explosion. So some contexts aren't so concerned about the amount of energy stuff that's happening. Some are concerned about the amount of energy stuff that's happening. Some are concerned about how these are being communicated and how inner dance is going into a it's joining it's merging into a lot of the stuff that's happening in there. Inner dance is a word or a term that's coming into the Kundalini space or the other space. There are a lot of these energy words that are being thrown out. That's not just common nouns, but proper nouns. You know, what you might call brands, methodologies. So some people do understand inner dance to be like either a community or a specific thing that happens. Some people still think it's something that we do. Obviously, many of you don't see it that way, because normally when you try to do something, that's when inner dance doesn't really happen. So yeah, for me, these are interesting to look at from all points of view. I'm really open. I'm not in a space of decision making about this. I usually am not. I never have really questioned energies, directionalities. It likes to move where it moves. And we can either try to control it or we can watch it, talk to it as if it was an intelligence. That's interesting when we bring language into the mix. Language evolves as it does, and anthropologically, when you study language, the moment it stops changing is the moment it starts to die. And some languages do die, you know, like recently I've read articles where, okay, this is the last person who spoke that language. So language does have a way of giving birth to itself. Language isn't singular. It's always like a son or daughter of another, you know, mother, father situation. And there's always a space in between where language is undergoing a change. These are the spaces of the borders, the boundaries. The spaces in between is normally where language grows. And that's really where translations are happening, you know, where this culture or this country or this space meets another space. There needs to be like a fluidity so that meanings could be possibly exchanged, negotiated, or bartered. Yeah, so right now, a lot of you are living in places where these translations aren't happening in the borders per se. They're happening right there in the middle, because say in Berlin or London, can't really say that's like a German space or that is an English space. Even going to Helsinki, you can't really say this is a Finnish space. You look around and everything local is becoming more and more global, same as here in Palawan and the Philippines, even in general. So inner dance is, for me, actually a part of language. Not language just as we understand like speech or writing, but inner dance has a communicative aspect to it. Language goes beyond communication. Language has organizational elements to it as well. And inner dance in that way holds a part in the understanding of the librarification. You know, the space inside of us is the library of meanings, the ocean of semantics, the ocean of form, like form within information. Like what is a thought, what is an idea, what is a concept, and how is that mapped out across a whole sea of all these meanings that are translatable across hundreds or actually like thousands upon thousands of different linguistic colors and dimensions. If I was to simply express inner dance, there's a dance between what in anthropology is called secondary orality. When we came into the internet, the age of electronic thought, the age of connection, there was like a tribalism that arose that followed the age of literacy, where communication was more, like more, I would say, like the only word that comes to mind is slower, like feedback mechanisms in reading and writing, which is the medium that was used when we used to conduct business and education, and like how to hold abstract thinking. Some of us used to use these typewriters. I don't know if you remember that. That's really slow, where you try to write a term paper for school. You had to be really careful about every word, because that medium did not have the virtual, spontaneous or simultaneous editing capacities that the digital medium would hold. So secondary orality is almost like a return to fastness that oral traditions and speech had within the tribal medium. So inner dance for me, yeah, it's like a return to the fast, the speed of orality. One difference between reading and writing, which is literacy, and orality, is something literacy brought about is a possibility to centralize the information and the people themselves. When you read a book, the book was written by an author who holds a kind of authority, primarily because that sort of medium is very one way, directionally speaking. It's like you can't really speak to the author because the author is absent. There is no immediacy. It's the book that mediates the communication. So there's like a gap. So something happened to the brain when we took away the mediating element of the book, so that suddenly you don't need to be with a person to be in the presence of that creature, that organism, such as what we're doing now. Something happened to the brain and to the embodied mind, which is the whole body, and to our consciousness itself and our energy fields when we entered into a secondary orality. So something sped up, something's going faster now. For me, that's like a psychedelic space within the energetic journey, and I've seen a lot of that. I've swirled in a lot of that myself. It's just that inner dance for me was only partly that. So one of the main questions within Studios Mundos is, if you had like a lot of time to experience all of this, to think about all of these, to philosophize, to structure yourself, to grow within this like energetic soup, what would you come away with? One possible insight to that is you'd probably come away with like a universal or collective wisdom, where we all actually access the same library. So I don't know how long that would take for anyone to stay within an island, or to become like a vampire that conquers death and lives on Earth for many generations. Would it take like 100 years or 200 or 1,000 years for all of us to end up in the one place, the peak the peak at the top of the pyramid where where all things meet, not at the base where everything just scatters and diverges. So for me, inner dance is actually that space. It's a vibratory space where we are taking our time and we are going into space that we are able to go beyond just what I think or what I feel, and we start to access that womby planetary, like, central nervous system. And when you spend enough time in this energy, what happens is more, for me, it's more of like a secondary literacy, where instead of just speeding up, something's actually slowing down too. So the more you take in, the more elements start to dance and explode and float around the space, because you've been through it again and again and again, through so many lifetimes, through so many interstellar connectivities in every cell and every, there's pattern recognition. The more you take in, the more you see similarities between the, like, what is separate. So I've felt that, the internet's bringing in this age of connection, age of speed, feedback loops. But based on where I have been, I've been seeing more of what is incoming after that. At present, when people experience inner dance as a sonic, psychedelic, like, oneness, that's more or less the space in which something is responding to something that has passed or is passing in transition, or already what is here, something that is a response to what came before it. In a retrocausal way, when you spend a lot of time with that, you get a sense of what is this moment then creating as a set of conditions where something is beginning to respond to it. There's a new age. There's a new system already even being birthed, even as this current one that is actually so new is already on its way out. It's already in a goodbye space. That's how fast the transitions are. So when I say secondary literacy, there's almost like the same slowness and heightened structuralism available within reading, writing traditions that really helped us to slow down the energy field. It's not reading and writing per se. It has the same direction, the same side of things. If there was this dance between the two, and that's why when I hold space, especially physically, I speak a lot about, like, genius, intelligence, not just wisdom. That means many things in many cultures. Wisdom doesn't have to be the same as intelligence. I do see an actual intelligence or an authentic intelligence, and AI is coming, and it's coming from another dimension, this other dimension that we are visiting more and more. So when you spend time within secondary orality, and I would just describe that as a wombing space, from a postmodern view, before we go forward, we have to go back. We are in a regression, and in that regression, there's a lot of remembrance. There's a lot of internal dialogues taking place, so that everything that we haven't really, let's say, we could say healed, the things that hasn't been looked at, the stones that haven't been turned, we're integrating, So a lot of the parts needs to be unraveled before we can move into another wholeness. So after that mode of regression, there is a progression, and that the regression part doesn't need so much attention. That knows what to do. It doesn't need as much consciousness. That's the surrender part. That's the letting go part. That's the trust part. That's the part that's it's just going to spiral down. It's going to loop. It's going to go in circles again and again and again, and after that again, and then it's going to do that again and again and again. What requires energy, conscious energy, is progression, to go forward once again, which is which then keeps bringing us back to the stages of growth, that we can become babies, cosmic babies, universe, that was there in our infancies. Then that's a brain state that's accessible, that's just so hyper connected, that needs to be remembered, not as a set of memories, but as a dimension, as a structure. You don't have to go back to when you were 1 year old. That's, it's just more of like, what's the actual structure of that. So this brings me into some of the topics that we have ongoing in the channel, in the chat group. So in some parts of the world, there is a saturation point. I'm trying to remember this concept, the law of diffusion of innovation. Maybe some of you have heard of it. It's to do with a tipping point, and that there is a certain amount of people supposedly in society that when the early innovators have started to use the product or to adapt the service, to conduct this behavior, this thought, there's like a tipping point where suddenly there's an explosion of the usage of something that was weird or new or unfamiliar to others. So I would say that either we are nearing the diffusion of this thing. Maybe there's like a tipping point, something starting to tip. And it's, you think of either a tree falling down or a domino starting to, but something's falling. That's the metaphor there. And that leads to some concern and some excitement. It means like, okay, there's movement there. There's a cycle there. There's a paradigm shift there. There's a transition there, and you're in it. Some of the excitement in groups like this is we're not just in it, we're part of it. We actually have a choice to either be one of the dominoes or to be the finger that like helps to tip it over. To take part is a blessing indeed. So consciousness around this becomes all the more important, because it's really observation right now that would help to bring us forward. It is not control. It's not like putting things inside tight boxes, and just like the thing with language, you don't stop it. It's evolving on its own. So what do we do, right? When we talk about marketing, I used to be in marketing. One of the reasons why I had to step away from that world is I was really disinterested with the centralizing force marketing held, where marketing is usually in service of like something that wants to hold more of like power, resources, control, sometimes with good intentions, sometimes with questionable ones. And and because we are in a postmodern, post-colonial, post many things, but post many isms are going through post. I'm not going to name them, it's too complicated, but let's just say we're in a post something. Post means yeah, there's like a movement. After that, there's something called post. So one of the posts that I posted today was Darwin. We're in a post-Darwinian space where the age of competition and comparison is moving into a space of collaboration and communion. So one of the central or key elements in a postmodern or post-colonial space is a decentering of the power structure. So I'm not really against marketing in overall. It's just that when people bring about these conversations about social media or different kinds of media, I'm not sure exactly how to talk about this because I am not on social media. There is still a centralizing force within certain ways of expressing, certain ways of promoting, certain ways of putting things out. A lot of which is beautiful. It's just that within a noisy, competitive, consumptive, and commercial environment, like there are a lot of these hidden energies that's being driven by, you know, histories of lack, histories of insufficiency, of shame, of not being enough. And when all of a sudden this breaks out in this milieu, this fireworks display of stuff, and something that's not really used to being a commodity, something that's not used to being a product, suddenly joins that marketplace, me without judging it, it becomes actually interesting to observe, like what exactly is happening here. Like from a good perspective or a glass half full perspective, it is at least bringing it into the marketplace. It is at least bringing it into a physicality so that it becomes ontologized. It becomes a being. It's looked at, it's suddenly seen, rather than it's, you know, within the secret societies and the underground movements where you need to have the secret password and secret handshake to so putting it out there is going to be part and parcel to the thing. It's just that when it then starts to join that field, it starts to instantaneously adopt the same characteristics that the physical stuff also imbue, also carry with them, that this is something you can sell, it's something you could use, this is something you can utilize, you can you know, instruct, it's something that you can box in, it's something you can limit as well. We can just keep going on and on. We don't have to opinionate, we just need to go into the philosophies of what it means when we move from a subjective to an objective, or an energetic to a physical thing, from a vibratory to a material thing. You know, how do you evolve from something vibratory to something material? That has evolutionary narratives to guide us. So that seems to be happening right now, and we can look at it from any angle, from the glass, but definitely the water is going to be somewhere there, like in the middle. So I'm not going to generalize this. I want to talk about what this means from an inner dance space, so that as a community, I'm not here to make decisions. As a community, we're here to help the energy. You know, you can really, you should do what you feel called to do. We are not here to centralize. I can't do that. I sat down with Joanna in Helsinki for quite a few times talking about decentralizing the movement within the country, because energy does grow when decentering starts to happen. That's really when you know you did the job well done. You can see people are now holding the space, and they are not students, they are teachers of teachers, and the energy spreads. I think that is an important, like, geometry to have in mind, so that even us from Maya, when we work with anyone from any country, we don't tend towards like, oh, here's like the country representative, here's like the country ambassador for the thing. We're very careful from here not to work within any hierarchical system, so that anyone anywhere, it could be a person or a group that's holding something in integrity and authenticity, and also in going through the learning stages, we would we would see all of that as like equal. And it, you know, we yeah. So I think I'd like to go deeper into what's happening in the mind when the energy starts to take you. When the energy starts to happen inside of you, a transformation is taking place, a healing process is taking place. And then, you know, so naturally people would go into wanting to learn more about this, and then wanting to share about this. So this is a natural tendency in the energy, that when you undergo a process, the energy doesn't like to incubate itself forever. It wants to come out there. Every moment from that one moment of awakening gives birth. And so it likes to work with its hands, with its voice, with its, you know, there are many extensions of the heart. So it's only natural people want to share the gift. They feel like, I have all this love. It must be experienced. So that's like a stage, and that is something I've observed ever since. So where I'm at with the next level is what we might call teaching. There are better words for that, but let me just be straightforward with that. When it comes to giving trainings or teaching, this is also a natural phenomenon. So when there are then all of these trainings spurting out across the world right now, it's part of it's not just a saturation, it's also part of the tipping point where the diffusion of innovation is hitting. I think the rate was about 13%. So that could be like the amount of people in a population, that could be the amount of brain capacity. Like once you hit 13%, there's this exponential growth. Something starts to normalize, like in the world. So the teaching and training part has so many different levels to it. Like some people work off of living rooms, some people try to work out of really big conference type spaces. It's really just a natural tendency. And I myself advise people, if you stay just within the workshop giving space, something's going to happen to your mind that would go in circles. Especially for those who have been doing this since the beginning. People like Tom Noha has been there. Like when this wasn't so common before, it wasn't actually that easy to bring this into context. And something happens to your mind, body, and brain that's almost like defensive, like trying to contextualize or ontologize it. There's this thing, we don't know so much about it, you're just going to lay down and something might happen. That is a great opportunity, but it also could do some kind of damage. It's not really a negative sense of damage only, but it can like create some loops inside your system. It's part of the like the channeling experience when you try to contextualize this in a space that's quite resistant and doesn't know this exists yet. You need to channel the baby state so that they could go there. And that is not the time to create structures. It's not the time to construct. It's not the time to build. It's a time to help in the deconstruction space. So when you're there, that would still be quite alive and vibrant. You know, it's exciting. It's pure. It's so like there. But if you stay there at that point when people are already asking questions, I want to know more about this. And you're not just there to tell them more about the inner dance. This work is really just a doorway to the room. I'm experiencing the energy. I'm experiencing my consciousness. I would like to know more about who and what I am, because I'm suddenly experiencing myself as this energy field. So then that kind of support becomes interesting. So to share from my own experience, when I started to teach, there was growth inside me. And when I started, it was really simple. My words were simple. The concepts were simple. The energy was not simple. The energy knew what it wanted to say. There was the wave, there was the mandala, there were these geometries. And what I would do is I would have this big cardboard. It could be like this old cardboard. It could be like illustration boards that get in the bookstore, like maybe this big. And I would write the outlines. I would draw the same things that you see me doing in video. I would do that where I would go. That could be in India, that could be in Kathmandu, that could be in Hawaii. That's what I would do, and it helped a lot. It helped the people like take in a lot of information within 3 or 5 days. It helped me a lot, and I would say it helped the energy a lot. It helped something in the global that was also the universe, the universal, like land here really slowly and organically. So in that way, facilitators will not stay with workshops. They cannot, because there is actually a stagnation with just the workshops. So some of us might see a lot of the new trainings coming up as merely being economically driven. A lot of that could have some truth in it. And I am seeing that, but a lot of it is part of the stages of development that takes place when a person becomes an energy. And one of the stages of development that happens in the early years, in the 2-year-old or 2.5-year-old, is called language acquisition, which is language production and language comprehension beginning to arise. That means not you, but the energy learns how to speak. Anyone who's gone into a very deep space, a near-death space, a psychedelic space, an inner dance space, an aphasia space, when you learn to speak again, something is undergoing a translation from there to here. And sometimes you end up in either an immersion workshop space, which is much longer than a workshop. It could be like 2 days, or or like a training space, because energy wishes to have the conditions of possibility to grow, and it needs enough time to be able to do that. So when you start to speak from that space, Gra is doing that, Ahilan, Fanny have been doing that, Johanna has been doing that, Noah has been doing that. Something learns to speak. And because language is also structuralism, something starts to construct. So then when you bring in your study material, which isn't just yours, you do service to the world and the universe, because the energy is also, being a planet in the universe, starts to grow. So this is something you pay for. You either do it as an individual, you find your tribe, your soul group to conduct this with. Organization, that's the irony word here, the paradox, it's a contradictory word. That this energy is supposed to disorganize, but how to bring the organizing element there is just really quite huge. So then you would be interested and are already interested and have already been acquiring some of those tools. How would you work with, so bringing up this thing with Josh, for example, and the project with Rosa, we can feel there's something significant there. And I would still bring that back into secondary literacy and secondary orality. My personal significance with the Josh element is when I had that conversation with Lisa, I was in the eye of the storm. It was really busy here. The kids were coming for the weekend. We had guests. The innerintensive, it just started. Studios Mundos was coming up. There were storms. And so when Lisa talked to me about Josh, I didn't even reply to her until weeks later. And then upon her insistence, I knew there was something important there because of the other conversations that were happening with the doctors. So I made I think it was 2.5 hours, maybe somewhere between 2.5 to 3 hours, or just 2.5. Here's what I wonder about. And I used to experience this when I used to do the videos that are on YouTube, the old inner dance videos. When I used to do a training, I had this video camera, and the video camera has, I think, about 120 something gigabytes, which is huge back then, 10 years ago. I would take tons of footage, and I had the extra battery because it's a lot of space. I would just take as much as I could. And then after every training, I would go to my laptop. I would upload the video while I'm doing something else. And once that is rendered, I would sit down in front of the laptop. And maybe after the second or third time I've done it, I realized that it was taking me less than an hour to do it. So this is inconceivable, because in a 5-day training, when the camera is on, like most of the time, so let's say there's maybe 8 hours per day times 5, 30 something hours. I'm bad at math. It's probably less, but it's still a lot. Like in my own mind, you have to review things and you need to do it qualitatively, but it's like the energy knew. And so when I would do editing, it's like I didn't need to look at the whole timeline within like a linear, story space. It would just condense instantly. So that is very much like playlisting. When you're doing it live, which for me is what orality is about. Like there's immediacy. Like you're there. It's not like the literacy thing where you're not there. You're there. So when you're playlisting live, it's like when you're speaking, you need to do selection and combination of words and thoughts and feelings instantaneously, not like when you're writing where you can really take your time to edit your thoughts, to think it well in scientific, philosophical structures. So when I was doing this thing for Lisa, which is actually for Josh, it took me like somewhere in between 15 to 30 minutes to create like a 2.5 to 3 hour playlist. When I did the thing with Rosa, which is a 30-minute playlist, I think it was like 5 minutes for me to do that. So this is what I mean. Like there's a secondary literacy happening within secondary orality. I owe my ability to have done the playlist for Josh in this way to the pandemic. Because of the pandemic, I was forced to make playlists in the house, in the room, at the top of the mountain, alone over like a long extended period of time, not pressured by what's happening right there in the space, the live space. And that did something to my own brain when I started to work with Logic Pro, where I'd have the arrangement view. There's something also about taking so much time, because it was really quiet here in Palawan. No one could even go out to the cafes, where Gra was experiencing this too. I could download as much music as I possibly could using these downloaders, where I could, stack them up, and I could download as many as 20 or 30 at a time. I just put the clip there, okay, download that, and then I'd store all that. I'd create these libraries. So what I'm getting at is because the organizational part in my mind was happening in the pandemic, where back then I wasn't anxious. I really just went straight into work. The pandemic was when I probably worked the hardest, and I owe it to the online processes. So when I started to make playlists for people that I wasn't going to be with online, that did something to my brain. That did something to the process. So when we were doing the last intensives and people are learning that sort of playlisting rather than the original way of playlisting, which is to do it live, I could see differences in like an orality playlisting and a literally playlisting style and brain. They're not the same. And what I'm interested in now is like, how do we bring these two about? Obviously, I'm not talking about playlisting. I'm talking about dimensionality, that there are these very extreme, super slow and super fast dimensionalities that we're accessing, and you want to experience both. They're both really important, like something that acts out of pure spontaneity, like spur of the moment, like intuition, but something needs to act like Mozart meets Hegel meets even the saints who just stayed there and for the longest time just processed things and aren't just blurting things out on social media because that's what they feel like in the moment. Like the sage or the scientist, both. So I think a lot of that is in the making, and this poses a question for a lot of you who are holding like a facilitation space or workshop space. At one point, you will be asked to go into a secondary literacy mode where you would speak as the energy, not just as loops, but also as like structures. You would grow. You would also have to reorganize a lot of your room, your mind, your machines, your virtual spaces, your own music, figuratively and literally. So back to Josh. There's something very functional that this is starting to go into, where the thing with Josh is really about application. It's like inner dance applied. In that sense, there is no need for even naming. There's no need for calling it Kundalini or inner dance. At that point, Josh's mother isn't interested. Lisa's not going through those conversations. And Josh isn't interested at all. It becomes more about what's the signified within the signifier. What is the meaning within sometimes what we call it, which is really going through substitutions anyway. So I'm particularly in that space because of the doctors who visited here. It's speaking a lot into the transformation medicine frameworks that are inside me. And I cannot be distracted from the intensive, not intense, but the intensive quality that sort of movement requires. That's why I'm not in the social storm in many ways, because I feel like I get pulled in, just like in that May intensive WhatsApp group. When someone asked a question, it was coming from a really personal ground. When I gave into that and I didn't want to, I just got pulled in. I actually just lost my brain, my mind, my language. It's like took me like a day or two to get back there. When we don't know how to set a boundary, we haven't really achieved a literacy stage inside of us, because you're giving a lot of immediacy, what could rather be a mediacy. To have a mediation means to come into a level of intelligence that isn't just an intersubjectivity. Like within structuralism or academia in general, when people talk to each other, like scholars, for example, they don't meet based on what I think or what I feel right now. They're meeting within the text. You know, there's a lot of this Freudian notion of sexuality, but within modes of intelligence, beyond orality, going into literacy, what actually comes up is textuality, where not just what I think, but like what do we know as a species about this? Have we done the work? Have we looked at something much bigger than what is seemingly compressing what is now? So when I talk about, let's say, being able to create a 3-hour playlist in like 15 minutes, the possibility to condense all of that had to do with the discipline that we now need to create for ourselves, like to exercise body, mind, brain. We need to grow in that way. So I think there will be multiple avenues we need to look at, and they all have to come together. Like music, for example, when facilitators begin to use music, and then they take music from Spotify, they take music from other musicians and sources, however powerful that is, when you aren't developing your musical brain. Einstein believed in music so much. Music does something to the brain, and when you start to learn music, to actually create and produce your own music and are not dependent on, which would lead to issues later on anyway, because if you're doing your work well and then you're starting to send out these elements for application, when you bring it into institutions, you can't just bring in other people's music and this is starting to generate income, resources. Musical development is one, as well as, like linguistic, I don't know about mathematical, but there are other intelligences need to come together organizationally. And for me, this is really just a matter of commitment and The word is investment. It's like, what do I spend more time on, even money or mental space on, like right now, you know what I mean? So everyone is going to be invited to this because it's a decentered space. It's really going to be up to you how well or how much you want to hold. But there are no limits. Energy was given and energy will be energy was received and energy will be given away. So try not to get distracted by what's happening out there. You need to at least be one of those who are holding more, just more, not just emptying, but integrating more. That is what's happening within a post space. Like there's an inloading of all of it that has been projected outwards. It comes back inside. As that happens, how much can you take in? How much can you hold in your loosey brain? So that when you hold either a limited space, it could be a day, it could be 2 days, it could be 5 days, you would be speaking from the holographic mandala, where you're able to speak about everything and some things, and you know how to organize those. So I think unless you've managed to start doing that for yourself, unless you've self-parented yourself, your own baby enough, this is something that needs to wait and take its time. And sometimes and often holding the inner dance as it is in its purity is way more than enough, because the energy speaks, the energy listens, and you need to be honest with where your community is at. Unless the questions are already being asked, you cannot like press it upon them. So there I feel some urgency, because this training mechanism is now already happening, and a lot of the trainings are happening within or early adoption stages yet. Anyway, it's not yet within like late, meaning it's still just spreading out. So this needs to be anchored maybe where you're at eventually, or maybe now. Studios Mundos is in existence now to help you holding that. And some of you might be helping some of those who might be doing this more generally or holistically. So I think that's my check-in or that's my weaving anyway. Partly what I would like to do, but I'm not sure when that would be, that could even be now, is to start introducing people in the community to specific, more advanced tools, platforms to consider. And a lot of those would be music-based, because music is at the forefront of the practice. So when you do organize your music, which is your vibration, this paves the way for the other intelligence in so many ways. So I think not really to try to do everything, but to at least access that space-time where, if I had all the time to be thinking about this, what would be the best way to help explode and reorganize people's central nervous systems. So you can either go into dual platforms where you have your live elements, you bring your instruments, and then you consider the other tools that aren't just the analog instruments. Like how do you bring like a multi-dimensional digital space to the live process. And then you would consider the process that happens in space, which is the studio space. And maybe they will crisscross, where the things that you're using in your studio, some of them you can bring into the live space. People would feel it. People would recognize the difference once you start going there. So that's why the conversation and dimensionality is really important, because when you switch, when you move, let's say from an orality to a literacy, and then a secondary orality, and then a secondary literacy, and then a tertiary orality, which is a, you know, I can't even begin to describe that. I've been there. And then a tertiary literacy, that's like, wow, you know, that's you with so much intuition that isn't just making things up, but because of all the experiences you've had, you can condense even within like a split second. I know what to do because I know this. I'm coming from integrity. I've been through this. I've seen this again and again. So the urgency thing is, this is needed. This was needed yesterday already. This level of where I'm speaking from and where I'm, you know, this is something we need now, because already the space is opening and there are a lot of people who are kind of holding the space, and there's not as much of the secondary literacy part happening. So yeah, just focus and not getting distracted is like the key. So maybe I could just open the, maybe let me just open the mic if you guys have reflections, thoughts, questions. Yeah, be good to help put this into a communal field.
Yes, I was thinking a little bit about what you were saying with the orality and literacy and applying that to music. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I was just thinking about that and how the literacy part seems to be something that I've been working on more, like to be able to kind of organize my thoughts through music and organize it, and almost like in the same way that I would write, I think has helped me to, it feels like in some ways maybe laying a foundation for the orality part, where I can do more of it live and start to kind of organize the sounds a bit better live, but to organize the thoughts through music, like in a pre-mixed sense.
Yeah,
I think that's like a useful foundation.
It's almost like the things that are going to be talked about needs to be not separate from the things that are going to be experienced. And because music brings the experience about, when music becomes canned, you know, like, oh, there's this list of songs that I usually use because that's the emotional, that's the explosion, that's the delta drop, then either, even if the information flow is evolving or not, maybe the stagnation in the music will create the stagnation in the information flow, or that the information flow could arise because the music is holding, but at the same time there is not a meeting point between perception and experience. To be honest, like Tom, you're the first one I knew who went into the literacy part of music. You're the first one to use Ableton. Like that was like a long time ago. So a lot of what people are only starting to look at now, like me included from 2 years ago. At the same time, you've been blueprinting through perception architecture. You've always mapped things out rather messily yet super sophisticated, and it's always been going somewhere. So I think what you're describing now is actually just what you've been doing. It's not, this isn't new to you at all. Yeah. All right. Anyone else? And then I wanted to, yeah, I wanted to show you guys like at least some things. Katya, did you unmute?
Yes, I have a question. Well, I don't know. No, it's not a question. It's actually sharing, you know, because I'm not great with technology. So, but I really find using inner dance playlist and other facilitator like Antonella, as I'm learning to do my own, I could see the energy, the vibrations differently. I also took Oscar facilitating, which was beautiful, very different, but very beautiful in a way. And yesterday I took like a class, like introductory class for Logic Pro. And the funny thing, I was just, you know, like before I did a meditation so I can come down because I was nervous, and I could totally, an image came through, right? Like just like a story in my head, like an image of like this drop of water, and start raining. Then I could see kids. It's like I went into my own dream, awake without listening to anything. And then it just hit me, oh my gosh, I know. So I started to put it together with this guy who was helping me how to overlap, explaining the tempo, all of this. And I only had finished 10 minutes. But it was like, so for me, it was like the story came through my images in my brain. Like when we go into an inner dance process, no? When you have these visions or memories awaken in the body, it was not intentional. I just did meditation, went like that. And that's how I created the 10 minutes. And then I listened and it was beautiful. So because I don't have my music arranged organization, it just came like that. And I just started looking for sounds that could, not sounds, how I lived the story that my subconscious was telling me, because it was not organized. It just came through me like meditation. And it's like, oh, I know. So I don't know how to say. So I don't know, because the music tells us the story, no? In a way, I think. So I don't know. It's very, very interesting for me. It's the beginning of my creations. In terms of technology, organization, music, all of that, it's something I have to do in my life. in general, in different ways. I also a time of transition for creating a way of expressing the inner dance process. I'm also, you know, like that, and also seeing what resonates more with me, because my intention is the same. I know you don't really do anything, we just support the space, and the process go itself within the person that is laying down and trusting, no? But I do see how music, the beat of the music change, and because I feel it when I'm holding space too. And also, what else? So that's mostly what's happening. It's very interesting because I also saw the things about pressing the body, you know, and at the same time as well, should you press, should you not press? And at the same time, it's like, this is supposed to let it flow and freedom. So I do this intuitively when I hold sessions, you know, same as like the language that comes through, sometimes comes, sometimes don't, sometimes I held back, you know, for minutes, and sometimes I use live instruments like, you know, like shamanic or like, but it's more like in the flow, in the moment. So for me, it feels that as long as I do it with like honesty come from the heart, knowing that the energies from earth. It's vibrating, and all of us is connecting with each of the participants. Like it's free. It's freedom. It's letting yourself free, not boxing. So yes, a lot of insights through what you spoke, and thank you all. Sorry, I had so many things to say. It's crazy.
It's good to witness people in transition, to hold the purity of it from the eye of the storm, the heart space, the core, and then slowly expand from that. And it's good that Tom shared before you where he's been doing this. Like some people really have no problem with technology. That's the thing. I read a book a long time ago, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, and it talked about these two types of people. Someone could buy a motorcycle and would learn how to fix it themselves, or their car or their computer. Some people would take it to the shop and have it fixed. So there's something in the autonomic nervous system that could either think from a sympathetic or parasympathetic space around this. And I like this meditating before. And what that speaks to me or to us, I think, is there's like a trance when you create the music from that other space. So you're still not detracting from the whole journey, or the energy, that dimension. But it is a deeper dimension. In many ways, when you start doing that, maybe it's wrong to say deeper, but there is another dimension. Sometimes it seems deeper. Sometimes it seems more intuitive. The one difference there is your eyes are open. It's deeper in that way. When you're going to a trance, but your eyes are open, you're having to operate from a very conscious, conscious space. And that teaches us. So like one example is when a lot of people start holding groups, and when they don't have the musical background, and then they find like a drum, and then they start to play with it like a toddler would. Boom, boom, boom. The tempo, which is rhythm, is accessible slowly. So sometimes that can come with the energy, but there's nothing wrong with just getting a drum and then spending time with it at home, trying to learn what synchronization means, and what would the drum beat in, let's say, Brazil be like as opposed to in West Africa. You start to learn vibrations because the drum holds rhythmicity. A lot of these are interesting for us for sure. It's just that sometimes it needs to be spoken because we're busy, and like you're a mom who has time to go drumming. But this is not interesting for us. It's like we all want to experience this. So in a sequence or step by step, we start to prioritize, not to try to do all of these things all at once, but to at least have a starting point. And because we all have the free 30 minutes or 1 hour where we're just staring off into space, either feeling the emotion or thinking too much, we could just think in a very nonlinear way where we're actually thinking more when we're also experiencing sound. You a lot of musicians know this. You get lost. You just get lost in the space, and then when you start to play with others, it's amazing for me that you actually can hear the music in other people's heads. You find this space where you're all grooving or jiving with the same tempo, the same synchronization. If we're learning to do that with bodies, we may as well understand how this actually works. And music is going to be a very, very important part in the cognitive sciences. I think it's the missing link in our true understanding of like how the brain works, how language functions, and cultures grow, and so on and so forth. Okay, it's a rich topic. Anyone else? Not just about music, but in general. Any thoughts that came up the last hour or or more. 2 hours already. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I just want to shortly share how I really love music. It's something I really nurture. It has nurtured me ever since. But I am not musical in a way that I cannot play any instruments, and I had really I can't sing. So and I had a lot of shame on the singing part ever since I was super little. But so now I have a lot of fun making my own playlists. So for me, that's a gateway to get closer to music and bring it more to myself, or bringing myself more to the music. So I like that part. But what I experience is when I hold space for the others, that I gradually have been starting to see myself, my body, like just my body, as an instrument, because I am not still during the session. I'm constantly making sounds with my hands and my feet and my voice. So it's like, yeah, that's how I think I experience myself now in a session. Is like I'm an instrument and I'm not really trying to do something with it. It's just I'm just allowing it to be there and to just to flow with whatever comes. So for me, it's a good step in the direction of creating sounds. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
There's something pure and valuable about being there when there's the immediacy in the moment when you're so present. In the beginning, you're going across the room, you're touching bodies. There is a reason why people touch bodies. It's because of like immediacy. And then later, you will realize that you don't have to touch bodies as much anymore. And this is one of the things being discussed. And when that happens, you find your toning, you're sending out a sound, and it makes the whole room become one. It brings people deeper. You're using your language. And then when you go into your music more, that's when you realize that you can affect their vibration, not one at a time, but as like a whole room. So yeah, like it's important to listen to where people are at with the immediacy, because some communities need that. There are bodies that need to be held. Presence is really, really important. But once context has been provided, that people know this is here, immediacy needs to give way to mediacy. You need to be more absent. We have to let go of our anxiety where we always need to be there and do something and press this and do that. That is the second layer of trust that we need to come into, and that is not just a selfless part. It's self-serving. You actually would serve more yourself when you free yourself up from having to be the one to be there, especially where touch is at. That would free up your psychic field to get interested in the structure of things. But in the beginning you won't be there. You will feel overwhelmed by the demands provided by the situation. So some people are not there anymore because they've already opened up communities, and people know it's there, and then they can easily go in. So to take them deeper, you would then need tools later. But immediate instruments, like actual live analog instruments, are really important for when this is only starting to, but where some people in this room discussed there are places in the world where there's a saturation. Like Federica and Ilaria are talking about, like a place in the world that definitely is known for saturating. I don't know. I've not been to Tulum, but whenever people talk about Tulum, it's like a saturated place. There's like a lot happening there, and they're doing it a lot and all the time. That's usually an opening for something deeper. It's a great opportunity to hold, you know, something people would say, this is authentic. This is beneath what is the surface. And yeah, we should be motivated by those. But if you're not there in those places where this is saturating or saturated, then the more oral forms of the process where immediacy, you know, just go do what you have to, you know, touch, press, energize, like awaken, you know, do these things. But later, when it's, you know, organizing, then you wouldn't need as much. It would actually free you up. It would free you up tremendously. But it's a growth process, and it takes weeks, months, or years. So don't pressure yourself. But at least we are. So even talking about, okay, Logic Pro or this and that, this Studios Mundo space is not going to just loop. We will go into actual parts. I want to at least like share where in my own body and mind where orality and literacy are coming together. When I went to Europe this year, I really exploded within like a live space that I haven't done in so long, when I've been in a space, you know, like a playlisting kind of space the last 3 years. And it took me maybe 2 months to go into a studio building process. And there's like a whole different genre of inner dance playlisting that's kind of coming through. And I feel a lot of this is learnable depending on where you are at. I'm not going to be worried about whether this is going to be too much, because even for me, the process of learning has really done quite a lot for my own mind to settle. There's a lot of discomfort in getting to that space of getting settled, but once it gets there, bit by bit, it doesn't really lose the excitement, the calmness. It's just like being in the flow. So I feel that we're going into another level of holding people's brains. And that's why some people in some communities, some people in the world may not be feeling as much, because they've already saturated and they're waiting for like the next level. And it takes a little bit to kind of organize into that field. So I think by next week we can actually start holding inner dance music from here, like live, with some musicians who are helping to hold this musical space together here. And then we'd be interested in coordinating that from an interglobal space. Yeah, we've been speaking for 2 hours. We still have time. Anyone else who might want to go into a lot of the topics that were brought up? It wasn't really just about music. Let's just keep this within studios and see what communities. Yeah, Natalie.
I have a question because I have been flowing in the sessions. I'm sorry about my English. Okay, I'm trying. Flowing with what I'm feeling in each session. Then I have done some playlist with Audacity, but you know, I don't like to put music in the session. I like to put the playlist. Sometimes I put another sounds, but I like to play instruments in live. I have been buying different instruments that I was feeling, like different times I showed you the other day, or I work with the I don't know in English, the folks, you know, the diapason, folks, with aromatic, and each time with the different working in the sessions, in me, I touch the people. People like when I touch them, and they say me always, it's so comfortable to your hands. I like to work with the energy, you know. Then in the last sessions, what happened is people don't move, but people have a very deep process, deep trip of healing of different things. And but each time I move more, it's like the movement is more in me, moving the energy. You know, I move the energy because I feel a lot of the energy in me. But this do the session more with more power, you know, and I don't feel to want to play in life with different machines, you know. I feel to work the energy, to work the instruments in my hands, you know. Then I like to work like this, you know. I don't call me to create music in the session, you know. My call is for to move the energy. Maybe I don't know if maybe with the time it's going to flow in another way, but it's what I feel now, you know. And the sessions have been very nice trips in the people, and very nice healings of inside, you know.
I understand where you're coming from, and it's beautiful. I would go back to some of the things that I'm saying about immediacy and immediacy. It benefits the facilitators to be in that space, and it also benefits the facilitator to be the one to touch people and to bring healing. So in that dimension that you describe, Natalie, you are still very much needed, meaning you're there. You have to be in that situation for the healing to take place. So you are in fact the mediator for their healing. So then I think there's something significant in what you're saying about not being physically present. I'm not sure in that same space. There is something deeper in that where you are possibly giving people more independence. I don't know if I understood you right, but based on what I'm saying, in the first stages of holding space, when there's so much touching involved and there's so much the need to put in our inputs like in the moment. And from what I know in Spain, this is going to be like a really big stage because that's the dimension that is there, that is needing to maybe happen because of a lot of the family systems people need to come into these dynamics of being met, being held, being touched. So just to hold the other sense here, there is a space in which we will not actually need to be in the physical or even virtual space, which is what happened in the intensive when suddenly people were shocked that I'm listening to this, and I'm actually going so much deeper as compared to a lot of the intense, explosive, expensive, retreats that I would go to, or trainings that I would go to. It confused a lot of people, actually, that there wasn't the mediator, there wasn't like the healer or facilitator who had to be there. So sometimes when there is the style to use certain things that hold the energy of like mediation, like presence, this is something we shouldn't let go, because this is a way, this is a ritual, this is how we held cultural memory, through rituals like these. But because there is another space out there, this is something that we would not have to force ourselves to go into, but it is nonetheless there. Just looking at the inner dance as a movement that happened in the world, there's something in it that's specific to that story. Like, why did it evolve the way it did, exactly as it did? Because it's interesting. Okay, yeah, we could go into the tribalism of just bringing out the live instruments only, and not, or even like, why can't we just do silence? Why can we just not sit down, close our eyes, and do that? All that is well and good, and they belong to the traditions that are around where that was happening. So there is something about the story of the inner dance that has dimensionality. Having said that, where you are experiencing what you're experiencing, it belongs to you, and it belongs to the space that you're in. So don't feel like what is being shared by anyone, including me, puts you off what you're doing. When you're experiencing it, just hold it well. That's what you're doing. Don't it's not, there's no energy of comparison where it's like this or that. Like, a lot of what's being shared is just a matter of fact. It's just something. And there are people who are kind of already there, and then there are people who are interested. Okay, is there something there? Or there are some people, okay, I don't want to be there. So what will happen in Studios Mundos is there will be a fractalization of these many conversations eventually, where if people had interest levels on specific things, there has to be conversations that will be separate for those who are not interested in it, so that if they are holding the purity of where they are at, there is no need to centralize all of this into like a one setting, so that those who are feeling like I'm coming into this space because I need the support of being able to go into this without having to go into the tremendous amount of research and the tremendous amount of trying many things out just to arrive at the same space where inner dance might head to. Anyhow, it does get kind of expensive in that way when we can rather simplify. We need to train our minds to know where are we at, what do I need, where do I go to. So we ourselves are quite involved. I don't want to say busy or stressed, but this is also something that's urgent, because when you do go into the energy in that way, in that higher intelligence way, your mind starts to get interested in a lot of things. And sometimes when that's like a hodgepodge and it's getting mixed up, There isn't a same type of growth as when you start to particularize or fractalize into certain like specific things. So that's just me speaking, that I shared something, and then when you share something and it comes in this energy of like, there's this thing happening, that's because we haven't yet created that space yet that allows what you're holding to be honored exactly as what it needs to be in that dimension. And there are many people who would be interested in that and would be there. And then this other thing would be interesting for other people that needs to be held like as well, dimensionally and technologically. But as I know, a lot of us would be in both. Would be everywhere. I do know that not everyone here is facilitating, so even like the music part is only so interesting to a certain point. You know, and that's really interesting too, because it's coming more into the philosophy and the actual experience and the real change that's happening inside. So thank you. I think what you shared was really valuable, Natalie. There's a lot there. Okay, some last sharings. Yeah, in studios, we don't also have to take up the entire the usual 3 hours. How are you guys? Do you guys want to talk some more or call it a day or a night, depending on where you're at?
I would like to ask something and to maybe expressing some things. Well, I'm interested in some point to understanding the code of certain specific playlists that for me is like angular stones for access to certain states in the body and states of how the energy speaks to the energy of the body. For example, in some moment, I don't know when, I really would like to tap in on it deeply on the womb room. I want to gain awareness about if out of the playlist and the sound design is also possible to get there through instruments or another possibilities. I'm asking this to you. Also, as a parallel comment, well, someone was talking, Katia was talking about how came the inspiration and how it takes place. Actually, how I would like to say this maybe makes sense to you, Katia, or to another ones. In the way that as a musician and as also curious with the energy, I noticed that when the signature, the code, the inspiration, the composition, or whatever we want to refer in different degrees of profundity, we became in a state of pregnancy. Is how I see the process of me. So how to hold the process of birthing, how to hold the nurturing process, how to sustain in order to be accountable for the different speech that the energy wants to communicate, in order to me observing in my surroundings the resources that I already have for responding to that communication, for that requiring that the energy wants on me in order to becoming accessible, tangible, and experienceable inside the space. And what else I want to say? I really quite interested to understand also about this slowing process to that is part also of the speeding process for dynamizing these different layers between making music live, our own expression, sounds or noises, the process of sampling and making the slow process of building the library, and also the yes, in some point until when is required by the circumstances and the offering and this change and the environment where I am to still using music from other people. So I feel I find very interesting all these things as I has been developing one area probably. So yes, it was the comments, and there's a few questions and things in between. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Oscar. It's a lot to cover. They're beautiful and they particularize. So thank you. On the womb room, and we've been getting like all sorts of comments and experiences from the womb room, from the innerintensive. Some of the usual comments are coming from fear. Not even fear, but terror. You know, it's like they're terrified. There's so much to be scared of within that. But then once they do get in, it goes really deep. So there's something about that. This is something I've learned, or something I'm noticing continuously over the years. So when you think of the heartbeat, it's like there's a regularity there. There's a tempo, but it's not regular. A regular beat would be, you know, there's something irregular there. So in the womb room, the heartbeat is there, but it's almost indistinguishable. It's somewhere in the background. When I made the playlist for Josh, one of the reasons why that works is instead of highlighting the build-up elements that would trigger the waking up mechanism, I would still trigger, but I would hide it underneath. I did that for the playlist for the prisoners as well, the liberators as well. I would put it underneath, so there would be a trigger mechanism, but I wouldn't do it enough that it would create the physical movements, so people would stay deep. Based on what I'm talking about, you would notice the significance of this when you hold long enough a space that doesn't have regularity or familiarity. So it could be like white noise. When I put on the womb sounds, not the womb room, but I have this 1 hour womb sounds that I use in workshops. Something that I couple with that would be the noise. In the noise app, you have this dolphin ocean something where there's these like bubbles and submerged underwater oceanic sounds happening, which sounds really womb-like, you know, before you raise it up. If you don't really provide the surfacing from that, like the regular beat, it could be like a techno beat, you know, people would stay there. So I'm not going to make a judgment call on this. This isn't like a right or wrong situation. There's something in the human that is always craving for the beat, the rhythm, or the tempo. In music, the actual term for that is the pulse. The pulse creates the intervals between the musical events, and if the intervals or the space or gap is regular enough, then you have the pulse. And then when the pulse is regularized, you have the meter. So when you don't have the pulse or the meter, that's scary for people, because that means you're dead. Your pulse is gone. So when you don't feed them the rhythm, that is a certain style. So when you explore that element of playlisting. Normally when we create a playlist, it's usually like a movement from no pulse that brings about the energy of delta or even death. And then you bring them to life, you bring in the rhythm, and then you take it away again, or you make it faster, you make it slower. In the relativity between these different time signatures, rhythm organizes time. And each rhythm actually holds a dimension. So there are facilitators who prefer a certain dimension, and that's like boom, 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 boom. I want them to rise up. I want to activate. It stays in that dimension, or it could go deeper, go even faster. Now the fastest usually measurable hertz level in us as a neural oscillation is gamma, and were you to try to reach gamma and also what's beyond gamma, high oscillating frequencies, you need to go beyond the rhythm the mind can recognize. It needs to go above, let's say 30 BPM, 300 BPM, which should go up to as much as 100 hertz in terms of the neural oscillations. Gamma goes maybe above 30, up to 30 and above. So you can actually reach that not through a noisy trying to go into an entrainment system. To entrain means to create a rhythm outside, hoping that what is outside would synchronize, would sync. There's a lot of interest in brainwave entrainment, but what hasn't really been understood is like heartbeat entrainment. Is inner dance more of a brainwave entrainment or a heartbeat entrainment? So the irony here is people actually access the super fast waves when you drop from fast to slow. And a lot of you have probably experienced this when there's like a build up, strong build up, and then boom, drop. That's sometimes when people cry, people scream, people start to shake even more. A lot happens, or that's when their mind just shoots off into space, into other dimensions. Because gamma has like lower amplitude but more wavelengths, so you can barely see it even. But it's faster than beta based on like tempo, but it's actually tinier than beta. So what that tells us is for you to go faster than focused, hyper focused, you actually need to slow, and the fast is hiding in the slow. So it's going to be up to you. Sometimes you can reach that by building up and then like shattering, boom, dropping. Or you could just hold a lot of layers, like a lot of layers. Yeah, so right now I've been doing that a lot through sampling actually. When I share this website where you can download all these different sounds from nature, and I have my own sounds that I'm recording. This thing that I wanted to show is merely a way to organize. Okay, here's like the crickets from this area, from the Amazon. Here's like ice melting from the Arctic. I actually recorded melting ice in Iceland. And then when you can make a rhythm out of that, when you can make harmonies and rhythms and melodies out of that, that does something to the brain, because you're still holding what's so familiar, but nature is really unfamiliar to human brains actually. When you can organize time, when you can create a rhythm out of that, you're actually organizing a dimensionality. So that's really cool to understand. Everyone has a rhythm. Each rhythm has a dimension. Learning to widen your vocabulary of vibrations, not just with one, not just with two, but holding a wide field from the most delta to the most gamma allows you to hold this, because inner dance is the cross sectioning between, you know. So I think as an answer to one of your other questions, how to build a sensitivity to a lot of the different resonances, different sounds, different mixes. The best way is to experience. I mean, I don't want to throw people out there into but I had to go wild on this. I really experienced a lot of extremes in order to actually come up with this. You have to realize what I subjected myself to in order to come up with something like the inner dance. I really broke a lot of the barriers and boundaries of what would be considered even abnormal. I just went beyond what is beyond what is beyond. And that's partly why this gift exists now, to allow people to experience that intense and extreme spaces in a contained way, in even a responsible way. But they are there, and you will know when to push the borders, because the borders are normally what holds limits. You will know, okay, it's time to press upon the boundaries. I've created some really weird playlists in my time, the last years. I literally looked for the most nonlinear, strangest sounds I could find, and they would freak you out. Like, some humans are quite weird in that way. Like, what they consider music would just like whoa, that's really something. I would put those all in one pot and see what that would do, and I've had all sorts of feedbacks. So there's a lot that I really don't know, but explore, because what we all have available right now as part of a post and a post situation, we are like valuing all of it. You know, one of the definitions of a playlist is, in the span of 30 minutes or an hour and a half, where would you be taken? Where would you take them? Where would it take you? You know, how far a journey would you take people? Cosmic, historicist, alien. There's no limits to that. No one would tell you what to throw into the pot, like this ingredient that is missing. That's what's so crazy about this. No one's gonna tell you, and then what you put in, that's what people will ingest. That's where they will go. You know, whether it's conscious, whether it's subliminal, it's gonna be there exactly as it should be. So learning to develop your vocabulary of vibration allows people to go into a wider range of experience.
Thank you so much. A short thing is there. For example, I was wondering if with a pitch plugin I will increase some the pitch of some brainwaves in order to achieve different states inside the same state, as you were sharing right now, that this is making this coming. For example, different the floor of gamma or the roof of gamma. Yeah. For example, is safe for people to me to put all this information on top. For example, roof. When you answer the question in private about the mu state, from there I start to noticing how these different oscillations, and maybe not just two, maybe three oscillations, I was wondering and placing and noticing the reactions and through the feedback. Of course, I'm not explaining this to the people. I am there holding the space and going through the topic and through the playlist and whatever is need to be held. But I'm noticing how the bodies start reacting in a different way. So maybe Caro did this question and you share this also, when is too much or when is there's a risk that can be riskable. It's my last inquiry. Yeah.
Okay, let me do a screen share. I'm drawing out like something from the Turkey. No, this is wait, this is Turkey. Wait, there's a slide in here that I'd like to look at with you guys. It's this one, right? So when you look at this chart, especially the spectral chart, notice how the higher or faster waves are happening at the bottom and the slower waves are actually happening at the top. Okay, which means that the faster neural oscillations are actually usually being transduced in the brainstem or the basal ganglia, the reptilian brain. This is to say that when you play slower tempos and people aren't really in that super deep state yet, one of the reasons why you make things intense all the way to gamma and high oscillating frequencies is when people's vibrations haven't really risen, they're actually in their heads. they're in their minds. So when you look at music, normally the BPM range would be a normal radio playable song would be about 50 at the very lowest, like 60. They regularize at about 80, 90 beats per minute. And then you go to the clubs, then you would go up to 120, 130. Anything beyond that is already quite fast, like 150 would be. But because we have these tools and you can raise it up to about 300 BPM, if you're, let's say, using Ableton, you could bring it up to 800 beats per minute because rhythm organizes time. That amount of oscillations and wavelengths would be quite dimensional if you know how to use it. Normally, you need to hide. When you're going faster, you actually need to hide that fastness within the slow. So in terms of tonality, that's interesting because tonality is actually rhythmic because the highest frequencies are higher in pitch. It's higher in frequency, so it's faster. So that means that when you play, let's say, bass tones, if people are still not really deep, it actually starts to still get stuck in their heads. But because the fastest tones are in fact hiding in the slowest, that's why you're kind of mixing. So I find the image that I shared actually helpful because to reach the animal, the primitive, the instinctive, the non-thinking brain, you need to almost trick or create a mixture. And sometimes that's a journey where you start in a certain way, slow, fast, slow, based on what the sleep cycles have taught us. And then you adapt to new contexts because the people that you're holding are always coming from like a specific space. So tempo, tonality, and then the other element of music is called texture. Usually tonality, tempo, and texture are some of the starting points people might study in terms of music theory and how that then would relate to brain, breath, and blood, the autonomic nervous system, the circadian rhythms. This is Studios Mundos. type stuff. And when we then start to experience the different methods, tools, and instrumentations, like a flute, for example, as opposed to like a guitar or a drum, or like a piano. When we say, okay, play a music instrument, when we generalize, okay, I play any music instrument. Let's say I take in one of the most difficult I could think about now, let's say bagpipes. Put people in the inner dance with bagpipes. Is that just a general instrument? Like all of these instruments do different things. So that's what structuralism does. When the mind starts to ask questions, oh, okay, what if, let's say, wind instruments are more of harmonics? What if that affects the breath? And what if the percussive instruments actually affects the heartbeat? And what if the more melodic instruments affects like the brain waves? Then put that together, you have a symphony, you have a band. And then you create that combination. Because sometimes when you're playing a track, or even if you're doing the instrumentation, when there's a missing element, for example, when there's a missing bass element, so your soup doesn't have let's say, the garlic or onion that's the foundation for holding the soup structure together, that's something we feel already, that people are going to get irritated because there's too much trouble, and there's not the other parts that are holding. There's a part of your answer that's not actually answerable yet, I feel, because I've been reading up on as much of music cognition as the new science that it is, as much as I could, and I still haven't found anything beginning to explore already the regions that we're experiencing. There are not yet the neurosciences to explain the inner dance constructs. When I look at my neuroscience, I at least have some explanations that are rather basic, but they are heading towards more complex ground. But when I look at the music cognition as a branch of the cognitive sciences, focus on music on the brain, they're not really even holding certain basic meta parameters. There's a lot of explanations of what this does, but where it starts to piece together into like an actual journey or an actual experience, not just like measurements, and not just then I think some of this work might be up to us, and we would need to back any knowledge claim. When you notice something, open up the wisdom part. Go see what could be found out. Terence McKenna said, there is no unconscious right now. Everything has been thought about, and you just need to have a powerful enough search engine command. You just need to know where to look, because I feel everything that is probably thinkable is already out there. It just hasn't always integrated. We've accumulated so much information, so much has been explored, so many layers, so much sophistication. It's in spirituality and in the healing experience where that integrates experientially, spiritually. But if you really wanted to hold the work, to become a therapist, to become a facilitator, to go into pattern recognition, you can't just feel a lot of this out. You can't just kind of sense things through. Something starts to compartmentalize and organize somehow, or okay, this belongs to that folder, or that belongs to that folder. So when I do my work right now, it's mostly through like Prezi. So then when I organize my head, it would be around these boxes, you know, okay, that thought goes into that box and that goes into that box. So this is just the ones I'm preparing for like this week. And then this one would go here and that one would go there and so on and so forth. So I'm not just talking about music in general, like the you know, like they're all like, once you adapt, I think every time you adopt a new technology, there has to be a corresponding philosophy that allows philosophy, theory, and practice to be well coherent. That everything that I do and everything I'm experiencing is based on our belief structures. It's based on what we know. I'm not just doing it because everyone else is doing it, or it makes money, or it makes me popular, it gives me power, or it, you know, to really come into a holistic developmental, it's like what you know and what you think and what you do is what you are. It's all, you know, in that one space. Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited
Thank you
where
so
you're
much
gonna
for
take this,
taking time.
Oscar. I think a music theory will come about, and you really have maybe something there to offer the world. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. I will be looking forward. Yeah.
Okay. Any last one? So yeah, I think we can close. It's been 3 hours, and there's so much already in the ongoing conversations in WhatsApp. And there's so much on the outlines. So we are here to support. We are here also to receive your support. We're all in this together. To always to create a functional platform where everything we consider important is held important. And because when you go into the energy process, everything becomes important. Then we are needing to create a new medium, a new channel that holds all the channels together. So where I feel Studios Mundos might go, I don't know how long it would take, is that there could be, you know, like pop-up conversations. It doesn't always have to be these 3-hour, once, twice a week Zooms. There could be, okay, like there's like a color that needs to be looked at. Anyone wants to be there, that's going to happen then. And the scheduling for that could be quite random. It could be more planned out. But that's where we mature beyond innerintensive. Innerintensive generalizes. Within Studios Mundos, we fractalize. We learn to bring focus to the small things, the small things. So every time when I do like a vocal sharing, sometimes I would say, okay, I'm gonna bank in this one insight or this one thing. I'm gonna bank that in, which means I'm not just throwing it out there so that it dissipates. I'm putting it into the bank, or I'm contributing it as something that's shared that would grow, and somehow all of these would network together, forming like a one vision later on. So we're going to be looking at how to build a medium that allows like a lot of these different conversations to serve you when you would need it. Okay, so thank you everyone. Maybe unmute, help me go into this making noises part.
Thank you so much.
Okay, good night.
Bye bye everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
keep in
you.
touch.
Bye.
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 Bye. Thank you.
Right.